This right there, it's not it's not lit. It's not active. The preview window. So when you're ready to go live, we're ready to go live. So do you need to copy this to the okay. I don't know what to do, guys. Okay, should we just record it? Because I only have so much time and so does George. Okay. All righty. All right, Caesar, you got to get out of the picture. All right. Oh, you're back in, Caesar. You got to go. It does. Okay. All right. All right. Welcome to our, there we go. Welcome to our second in a series of interviews with the pioneers who are creating the AI-driven tools that are unlocking the potential for personalization. I'm Dave Edelman, and I have the absolute pleasure of talking now with George Khachatryan, who is the CEO and co-founder of OfferFit. And I will not give away yet what OfferFit does. I'm going to let George do that in a matter of moments. But I do want to say that I have seen this is another terrific example of a tool that I have seen in action at clients and that directly solves one of the key problems that have prevented marketers from really being able to do personalization at scale. So it's terrific to have learned about OfferFit and to have the opportunity now to talk with George and share more about them. So,
Thanks for
George,
having me on the show,
welcome.
Dave. Yeah, thanks, Dave. It's great to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. So, George, why don't you just tell us quickly what does OfferFit enable?
Yeah. So OfferFit replaces A/B testing with AI testing for lifecycle marketing. So what we mean by that is the companies that use OfferFit use it for lifecycle, also called CRM marketing. It's when you're running campaigns to your existing identified base of customers, things like upsell, cross-sell, retention campaigns. And typically, before using OfferFit, marketers are optimizing these campaigns through manual A/B testing. It's a very tedious process. If we take the simplest example, for example, of just an email campaign, even there, it's what's the best subject line, what's the best frequency, the best day of the week, the best time of day. Running separate tests for that takes a very long time. And then beyond that, let's say you'd like to personalize and actually make different decisions for different people. Traditionally, you'd have to do that by dividing your customers in segments and then repeating the tests for each segment, which, as you can imagine, just further increases the effort level and how tedious it is to do this. And so there's a type of AI called reinforcement learning. These models automate experimentation. These models can automatically learn through trial and error, trying different things, and completely automating out that whole manual testing process. And OfferFit is software that allows marketers to set up and operate AI testing at scale.
So there's two things, George, that you said that I think are important that I want to bring out. One is the ability to test multiple variables, not just a simple A/B test. The second is to see how those variables perform with customers who have different characteristics, because that's the personalization element, that it's not just on average which is the best combination of variables. It's what's the best combination of variables for these kind of customers, for those kinds of customers. And that information being pulled out of the customer data that you're using. Am I correct in the way I explained it? You probably have a sharper way of laying that out.
No, that's exactly right, Dave. And if you look at it, traditionally you have an A/B test, right? Maybe you have testing a few different dimensions at the same time. But for traditional one-shot multivariate test, you're not going to be able to test people with 100 different characteristics and detect which of those characteristics mean what you should get. It statistically doesn't work. You really need AI in order to be able to disentangle it and truly be able to personalize at that level. And so it's not enough to do a one-shot multivariate test. You need to be doing a constant process of daily automatically testing different things in a way that's maximally sample efficient to work statistically. And so there's a branch of machine learning called reinforcement learning, which specializes in exactly that. But it's tricky to use. We know AI is not easy to roll out at a company. And so that's really the challenge, is how do you give marketers the power of reinforcement learning, but in a way that's actually practical to set up and maintain.
So there's the AI, but then there's an operational component to this that actually literally sets up the test cells, connects up with a CRM system like Salesforce or Braze to actually send out the different messages. Then it captures the results on the back end after customers do something and uses it to optimize the model. So there's a whole operational workflow here beyond just the AI that's operating.
That's exactly right. So you can imagine an AI testing platform like OfferFit. It slots in between your data systems and your marketing automation tool. So every day there's going to be data from your data systems that's going into OfferFit. OfferFit is making decisions on what to do for each customer. Those decisions are then getting fed into your marketing automation tool, and so it clicks in. And the analogy that I like to use is like adding a brain to your tech stack, where now those decisions are being made intelligently each day.
And what that does, I assume, is free up marketers to think of new ideas, of things to test. And it takes a lot of the drudgery and frankly, it eliminates the impossibility before of being able to test all those ideas, that you can now focus on the innovation.
That's exactly right. Like I can give you one example where we had a customer who found that this was in financial services. Customers with higher FICO scores, it was better to email them in the mornings, other things being equal. And so that's an example where if you're a human being trying to do that level of testing, it's completely impractical, right? There's a million different things like that you could test. You're going to have to pick five, whereas the AI can test all of them at the same time. But then those insights get surfaced back to marketers, and then marketers can see what are the characteristics that it turns out are most predictive and that are worth differentiating along. And then maybe we can make more copy for those people, right? So if there's a certain type of imagery that resonates with people that are low or higher in a certain characteristic, well, great, let's add more imagery that will relate to people that are on one or the other extreme of that indicator.
And you'd never know that on your own. Oh my God, what an example. So can you give us a few other examples? Just bring this to life, George. Is there a company
Yeah.
who's using this broadly and you can show the ways they're using that?
Yeah. Another example is a telco that uses OfferFit for fixed internet upsell offers. So you have a certain internet plan, and then they're going to be communicating with you through phone or email to offer a higher internet plan. And they want to know for each person, what's the best way to talk to them that's going to get their attention? Is it an email or a phone call, time of day, day of the week, messaging, but also what plan to offer? Who do you just suggest, one bump up versus a leapfrog offer where maybe they should be on, the highest or higher internet plan? And again, it uncovers completely unexpected things that as a human, it would be impossible to uncover. Like people who have recently called into the call center and had a particularly long conversation are more open to larger upsell offers. Maybe it's because they just had a great experience, right? A great customer service experience where someone really took the time to walk them through and solve their problem. Maybe it's because they're frustrated and they want to throw money at the problem. And they're like, hey, can't get my internet to work faster. Just get me your best plan. But for whatever the reason is, the AI uncovers it, and then you as a marketer can dig in and try to see what the implications are from there. But it also immediately starts acting on that. One of the pain points with testing is it's not enough to run the test. You need to take the insights and then actually act on them, which in practice means putting in a lot of rules into your marketing automation. These rules, again, it's easier said than done. They're hard to maintain afterwards. Whereas here, you're not just automating out the testing process, you're also automating out the execution on insights process, because the model is going to be automatically taking action on these things, even if you do nothing as a marketer.
So several things, George. God, every time that you put new things in to think about. One is the nature of the data that OfferFit is pulling from. Things like people who recently called in and had a long conversation. So
Yeah.
you really have to get the value, and I'm sure you don't have to go this far, but OfferFit can actually pull from the full range of data about customers that you're providing to it to find different clusters that behave differently.
That's right, and that's actually a huge. That's basically what makes OfferFit from an engineering perspective. Why it's a difficult product for anyone to build. And by the way, I take no credit for this. This is entirely Victor, my co-founder, as well as the team that he's assembled that's made this possible. But if you look at machine learning, you can build a custom machine learning model that takes custom data. So that's a possibility, right? You could have a bunch of data scientists build a custom machine learning model. The problem there is when you're building a custom model, it's incredibly expensive, and it's very brittle, because once you've built the model, you then have to maintain it and run afterwards. Then you also have some products which are very standardized and out of the box, but they always use exactly the same data schema. So for example, maybe you have a product that uses machine learning to do web experience personalization, and it always takes the standard data that comes when someone's an anonymous visitor online. What's their geography? What operating system are they running? What browser are they on? How many cores are on their machine? And then that's the data that it uses. And it's always the exact same data. The challenge is, how do you do something that's productized to where you're not having to spend millions of dollars to build it and then maintain it afterwards per model? So it's not a custom model, it's truly productized, but it has the flexibility to be able to take data, which is different. If you look at first-party data, even within the same industry, different companies are going to store their data in a completely different way and are going to have data about different aspects of their customer interactions. And so how do you have something that can take in that data with all of the richness that comes with that data that's industry specific and company specific, and be able to feed it into the machine learning models? And if you think about it, it's not just a matter of making the models flexible. It means you need to have diagnostic tools available, because with that flexibility, there's always the possibility that something doesn't work initially. And so you need to be able to instantly detect that. And so it's a matter of building both the flexibility as well as all the dashboards that allow you to roll that out quickly and consistently.
Are there any visuals, George, you can share that give us a sense of what it's like to interact with OfferFit?
Oh, you mean live on this discussion?
Yeah. Is there anything?
I don't have anything handy right now, but would be glad to do that at another time.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I should make sure we get that lined up for future ones of these. One of the things that came out when I interviewed some of the people who were using OfferFit, and we referenced OfferFit in one of the articles I wrote for the Harvard Business Review. I talked with Brinks, home security, and one of the things they talked about is how it changed their operations, the way they actually did marketing. That was something that was interesting. Is there more that you've learned about the way companies change the way they operate when they have a tool like OfferFit?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. It's what you were referring to earlier, where marketers now, instead of spending more of their time on just the blocking and tackling of setting up tests, they're able to more kind of automate that, and that frees up their time to focus on some of the creative as well as data interpretation aspects of the job. So that's definitely a shift. We also see companies sometimes shift from a calendared send to an evergreen approach. So with these machine learning models, they're able to now learn over time if you put them in a consistent situation and get better. And often marketers are in this flow where when they do things like email campaigns, they just calendar it, right? On Tuesday, we're going to do this and we're going to create custom creative, and you're constantly making net new creative as you go. Its huge pain point is just how laborious that is for marketers. And so we often see that they make a shift. They're like, hey, if we're using machine learning and we're going to be personalizing now for each person, instead of having this this calendared approach, let's build up a library of content, because often the content doesn't have to be specific to a given day. Anyways, it's general content about the product lines that the company has. And so let's instead move to where we're building up this library of content, and then we're going to use the machine learning to personalize among that and decide for each person what to send on which day. And that then has a couple of benefits. You get better performance, but you also end up saving a lot of time because you're not creating new assets that then just get thrown away after they're used once. So that's another operating change. A third operating change we've seen is often tighter collaborations with data science. So one example is, a customer of ours is Yelp, which has very strong marketing team and also very sophisticated data science team. And so in a way, this allows them to more quickly spin up use cases because they're able to use an out of the box tool, and it makes it easier for things like reporting, and just makes it easier. It lowers the barrier for marketers to deploy machine learning, and then that in turn often enables greater communication and collaboration between the marketing arm and the data science team.
So one of the points in the book that I have coming out on personalization in October is that there's kind of a math equation that says the value of personalization increases based on the number of interactions you have times the speed by which you're able to have interactions squared. So it's kind of like a cute little EMC squared parallel, that you have volume times speed squared. And what I think you're saying, George, is that with OfferFit, you can dramatically increase the speed of learning, because you're able to get these tests out the door dramatically faster, and you can create an ongoing program, an engine, instead of just doing periodic campaigns. And so you're constantly feeding your AI to get smarter because you're running more tests. So it's not only the fact that you can do multivariate testing, it's the speed and the constant iteration, the constant feeding of the AI with more and more test results that enable it to get smarter.
I think that's exactly right, Dave. I think the technical term in machine learning is that there's this notion called the exploration exploitation trade-off. So these AI testing models, so this is essentially this whole discipline in machine learning is designed to solve that problem. And the classic example is, imagine you have 10 slot machines and you don't know which slot machine is better than any other, and you have 1,000 coins, and your goal is to make as much money as you can from the slot machines through these 1,000 coins. This is a classical problem known as the multi-armed bandit problem, because one slot machine has one arm and takes your money away, so it's a one-armed bandit, and here you have 10, so it's a multi-armed bandit. And so if you think about it, if you're doing this as a human, you'd start by putting a coin in each of the 10 machines. Maybe a couple of them win, and then you're going to double down a little bit on those. But you need to be careful. If you over double down, you actually might be leaving value on the table. Maybe those two machines just got lucky because it was just one coin. So you actually need more data. But if you purely explore, if you only evenly split your coins, the whole 1,000 coins, that's obviously not good either. So there's a happy medium of how do you explore the right amount, but also exploit to where at the end you get best outcomes. And this is exactly the situation marketers are in every single day, right? Because whenever you're doing random sends, that there's a cost to that because you're not optimizing. And you want to be able to learn as quickly as you can and as efficiently as you possibly can. And so this field of AI testing, also called reinforcement learning, solves exactly that problem. The simplest example is these 10 slot machines and a simple multi-arm bandit. But of course, if you're now starting to personalize, you need to go beyond that. And there are more advanced techniques, like what they're called contextual multi-arm bandits, which can learn that the right lever to pull will be different depending on which customer you're talking to or which day of the week you're talking to them on. But the core problem is exactly the same. How do you tighten that loop? How do you learn in the fastest possible way and leave the minimum value on the table in your campaigns while doing that?
So I think getting started with this just on one hand sounds complicated, but I think it's actually easier than it sounds. And from what I understand, George, there's a couple of tiers of how you've set up OfferFit so that it's easier to get an on-ramp to get going and experiment with it. Can you tell us how you've set it up so people could just get going?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, Dave. We have a self-serve tier. This is like the entry tier of
Mhm.
OfferFit, which only connects to your marketing automation email sending tool. It
Mhm.
doesn't connect to your data warehouse or CDP. And so that imposes certain limitations on it. It's only going to be maximizing email clicks, not necessarily
Mhm.
conversions or revenue. It's email only, and it's only going to be personalizing based on the data that lives natively in your email tool.
Right,
That
right.
said, that's already enough to get a ton of value because
Mhm.
clicks usually do translate into conversions,
Right.
and it allows you to quickly experiment and optimize on frequency, time of day of the week, message, subject line, CTA, etc. And then sometimes companies will start with that tier because the fact that it's limited in this way allows you to get going in like a day. It's very, very fast because it's out of the box. You can get set up. And then after that, typically companies will graduate to the full tier of OfferFit, where it's going to connect to your warehouse or CDP, take all of your customer data that you give it. We can figure that to ingest that data. You can maximize whatever profit, revenue, any metric, put all kinds of custom guardrails. But that typically takes 2 or 3 months to do that install. So sometimes companies go straight into that if they want to go for the full value right away. Other times they start with the easy self-serve tier, and then once they're going well on that and getting good value, then they would upgrade to the full version.
So you mentioned 2 to 3 months for the install. How long to actually see the value?
It's usually a couple of weeks after go live, but it
Wow.
depends on the situation, depends on the
Mhm.
characteristics of the company. But yeah, but the typical path, 2 or 3 months install, and then a couple of weeks after that, you'd start to see lift. But
Wow.
that's obviously that's the happy path. It depends on a lot of factors. What happens case to case.
Yeah, I'm sure, and it depends on your choice of variables, that you're actually testing. Those may not be the ones
The
that
size of
matter
your
as much as
audience,
others. Uh,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
the size
so,
of your audience because it learns faster on a larger audience.
yeah.
Making sure
So
data quality, etc.
in the home stretch, George, are there types of marketers for whom OfferFit is more appropriate?
I think first of all, definitely CRM marketers, right? So folks who
Mhm.
are who are running campaigns to the existing identified customer base, and then within that, it tends to be folks, at least today, that are at larger companies. Because if it's a small company, there's often just more low-hanging fruit. Before you're implementing AI testing, there's often just many campaigns that are just not running, period. And
Mhm.
they need to go from not having campaigns for certain things to just establishing the baseline. And then once you're talking to larger companies, either B2C or B2SMB, where there's enough statistical sample,
Right.
and digital marketing is pretty core to the business, as opposed to like enterprise companies where it's everything's really going through a sales team usually anyways. So that's usually companies that are on the bigger side and that are either direct to consumer
Direct.
or they sell to small businesses.
Yep. And I assume if somebody wants a demo and learn more about it, they just go to offerfit.com?
OfferFit.ai. Yes, they
Dot
just go to
AI.
OfferFit.ai.
Ooh, okay.
Yep, and they
Okay.
can submit a meeting request form, and we'll set something up right away.
Yes. And I have seen the demos that you guys do where you can actually see the thinking in action and how they go. And so
Yeah, and we have an
it's
instant demo too on the site. So even if they don't want to talk to someone, but they just want to see how the product works, they can go to the website and get an instant demo.
that's terrific. Well, George, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, OfferFit solves one of the most fundamental problems in personalization: how to test and learn at a massive scale across many different variables to understand what works for different kinds of profiles of customers. And there's a lot of variance in there. And the key is actually eliminating the diseconomies of complexity that come up when you try to go into personalization, and having a tool like this that can manage the testing not just figure out what works, but manage a lot of the logistics involved as well, changes the game in terms of your capabilities to use it. Great stuff. George, thank you very much. I appreciate you being one of the pioneers early on in terms of doing these interviews, but also a pioneer in making these kinds of AI-based capabilities available.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me, Dave, and great speaking with you.
Same here. Take care. And thank you all